Hey, it is Nick and Eric. This time on Lemon's World, we're gonna do a list, the top 6 most obscure cars to ever show up at a Lemons race. We've had a lot of weird stuff. Here are the top 6.
Number 6 is the Lloyd Alexander of Pink Floyd. Now, this one is actually probably the most obscure. However, it is like a Bigfoot in that we have basically no media on it and know basically nothing about it. This is the only car that's ever turned up that nobody had ever heard of, and they were originally like this little German micro car with a 2-cylinder, flat engine, 4-speed gearbox, 29 horsepower. They sold like 7 of them in the United States. As far as we can remember, these guys found the shell of a Lloyd, and they did what anyone would do. They cut it up and put some other engine in it.
The weird thing about this car is it showed up to 3 races, never finished higher than 104th, and neither the car nor the team ever showed up again. So if you know anything about this car, what happened to it, what happened to the team, send us info or post it in the comments. The number 5 most obscure car is the Bricklin SV1 from Hella Shitty Racing. Now, we know that in the context of Lemons, you guys probably think Bricklin is pretty common, but that's really a commentary on you more than it is whether or not this car is obscure. It's completely obscure. SV1 stands for Safety Vehicle 1. It's got a whole story. The short version is the guy who originally imported the first Subaru into the United States, and also the Yugo, decided, you know what? I'm gonna put my own name on my own creation. It was built in Canada. Early ones, like this one that was raced in Lemons, had an AMC 304 V8, 3-speed torque flight automatic. Body was fiberglass, it had gull wing doors, had an integrated roll hoop, which made it the safety vehicle. All of this is very theoretical or on paper. In reality, Lemons does not allow gull wing doors because of the whole trapped inside of the car burning while it's upside down possibility. So Hella Shitty, to prepare it for the race, had to cut their own custom trap doors in the side to meet our safety tech rules. It said it had an integrated roll hoop. It didn't really do anything. They had to put a real Lemons cage into it. That was difficult because it's got such a low roof. Visibility out of this thing was not good. The fiberglass itself just delaminated and fell apart as they're going down the track. That was probably not good for anybody driving behind them. In the end, though, it ran. The AMC V8 was running at about 435 degrees. But they kept it together and won an IOE with it.
Number 4 on our list is the Great Wall Motors Volix C20R from Apocalyptic Racing, and now with Detroit Student Racing Team. This is our first Chinese-built car, and it's like a compact SUV that turned up in 2020. Now, this is a car that was never sold in the United States. The story goes that one of the big 3 had imported a couple of these for testing. They took one of them most of the way apart, they logged a bunch of test miles on the other one, sent them both to a junkyard to be destroyed. The junkyard operator said, this thing runs just fine, slapped a Ford badge on it, and drove it around Detroit for a couple of years. Now, Lemons racer Nick Heine found it for sale on Facebook Marketplace, as one does, scooped it up, and crushed Class C with it at Gingerman during its first race. Second outing, not so good. They cut the roof off of it after that and gave it to the Detroit Student Racing Team, who are now racing this thing. They managed to lower it so that it doesn't, what is a Volix? I don't know. Who knows? Some of them are built in Bulgaria.
Представяме ви новата любов на Ани. Volix C10. Топ цена, топ оборудване.
But it's basically a Chinese-built Toyota Yaris, and it even has Toyota badging on it underneath everything. Still, Volix.
Number 3 most obscure car in Lemons was the Humber Super Snipe from Team Tinworm. Now, say what you will about Britain's Roots Group, but they sure knew how to slap a name on a car. They had the Hillman Minx, they had the Hillman Hunter, but nothing will ever come close to sound so amazingly British as the Humber Super Snipe. The car itself is about as big as you can get if you're not in a Rolls Royce or a Bentley. It's got a humongous tractor-style pushrod 6-cylinder engine. God, was it even a flathead? It was some giant ice chest of a lump of a 6-cylinder. It's also one of the few Lemons cars that can be crank-started. Team Tinworm's particular Humber Super Snipe was actually 2 Humber Super Snipes, which is obviously more amazing than one. Much like the Volix C20R, the original Super Snipe had a slow-motion rollover that totaled the car. Nevertheless, Team Captain Allen dug up a second one from somewhere, put the two together, and put it back on track. It was one of the absolutely slowest vehicles to ever grace a Lemons track. But guess what? Both the Super Snipes won IOE, pre-rollover and post, never finished last, or even close to last, and they beat Roadkill's famous Datsun Rotsun 240Z by a handy margin when they were racing head-to-head at Buttonwillow.
Number 2 is the DAF 55 of Spank. Now, Lemons legend Spank dug out this weird Dutch relic from wherever Spank finds his car, and honestly, the man has a really amazing talent for finding weird stuff. Nevertheless, these are profoundly strange cars with some of really cool, crudely applied technology that was way ahead of its time. That included a belt-driven, continuously variable transmission in the 1950s. Now, like the Super Snipe in the UK or the Volix in China, I don't actually really know, but the DAF was common in the Netherlands where they were built, and most famously, what the CVT allowed it to do was to drive in reverse at the same speed as it could go forward, and thus the Dutch national motorsport of reverse races. Hella sweet. Hilarity ensues. Spank's original plan was to turn the DAF driving position around backward and re-engineer the whole car so he could drive backwards at the same speed as it would theoretically go forward while meeting Lemon's tech. In true Spank fashion, this was way too overthought out and overwrought, and he just decided to race it in stock trim, which meant 50 horsepower and some of the absolute worst handling of anything that's ever been on a Lemons racetrack. Still, DAF 55 in America, that's super obscure.
The number 1 most obscure car in Lemons is the Jet Electrica 007, brought to us by Team Duff Beer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Hey man, that's just a Plymouth Horizon TC3. That's what you're thinking. But, as the name implies, this is an electric version of the Plymouth Horizon TC3, which makes it its own separate thing. In the depths of the malaise era, some third-party car makers took their own swings at making electric cars. Most of them ended up as utter death traps, such as, the Sebring Vanguard City car. But some companies, including Texas battery manufacturer Jet Industries, did a sensible thing and bought some existing cars, took out the gas stuff, put the electric stuff in. In addition to some Ford Courier pickups and Ford Escorts that they converted, their big models were the Dodge Omni 024 and the Plymouth Horizon TC3. Duff Beer managed to find one of these. They did not convert it. They found an original Jet Electrica that was already set up with its ancient electric battery system. They found one to race in Lemons. With the original motors and batteries, the 007 was extremely slow. The batteries lasted about 4 laps before needing to be recharged for several hours. For a subsequent race, they found a set of upgraded Nissan Leaf batteries, rigged up a completely complex Rube Goldberg system of portable battery charges running off of generators in their paddock spot, which led to the unexpected side effect of attracting every single fire ant colony surrounding Carolina Motorsports Park. Apparently, they like electric fields. They eventually sorted it out to be almost on pace with the rest of the Lemons field, although it was still the slowest by a fairly significant margin. They did have one big advantage, however. At CMP, where this car raced, on Sunday there was a quiet hour due to the church that is next to the track. They had a special exemption because their car made no sound to run for the entire hour while everybody else had to be parked in the paddock. They racked up, at least 7 laps. It was a huge advantage. Duff Beer eventually retired this car from Lemons Racing, but then it did make an appearance on a Lemons rally with a Harbor Freight generator bolted to the back bumper as a range extender, and they were able to barely finish the 2019 Florida Man Rally.
There you have it, our top 6 most obscure Lemons cars, because the Borg Ward is too common. Now, if we've omitted anything else or forgotten anything, I'm sure that you guys wouldn't leave us mean comments telling us that we're idiots or anything like that. So, with that, we'll see you next week.